Hi, Anjali. How are you?
Hey, Anne Marie, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Great, great. So, Anjli Garg, I'm excited to introduce you. We're talking today about mindset, specifically in the context of interviewing. But as you said right before we started recording, it could be applicable to any context, mindset. So, I know mindset is a very important specialty of yours, if I put it that way. How do you work with clients on improving their mindset?
That's a great question. So, a lot of times people come to me with very concrete issues, whether it's that they want to get promoted or they want to manage their time better, or whatever may be getting stuck in their way of getting from point A to point B.
Mhm.
And a lot of times when we dig in and we go into it a little bit more, what it turns out is that there's beliefs about themselves or about the world and what's possible for them in it that shape the reality of what it is that they think is possible for them. And that's where the mindset piece comes in. Because when we have those beliefs and those patterns of thought about what's possible, what's not possible, no matter how great the tactics and tools are that you provide them,
Mhm.
they're not going to be able to get there, or they'll get there with a lot of effort and probably kick themselves because they're not feeling like they're succeeding in implementing them the way they should be. Because most of my clients are high achievers, so they're very hard on themselves as well. So
Right.
getting to those patterns and beliefs really helps to unstick the situation
Mhm.
and allow for an easefulness to achieving their goals.
So, if I hear you correctly, when I go into an interview, it's either a belief about myself or a belief about the environment somehow with relation to the interview. And you're going to take me from that to ease. Wow.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the
So,
goal.
so the beliefs about myself, we were using words like confidence and motivation when we were thinking about this.
Mhm.
I assume those are the it's self-limiting beliefs that you're talking about. Maybe we can start there.
Absolutely. So it's very interesting because I was just speaking to a client of mine this morning, and she was talking about she was going into an interview and wondering whether she really even wanted the role.
Mm,
And she wasn't clear even in her own mind as to whether she wants the role or not. And she's self-aware enough to know that that's going to impact how she shows up in her
right,
interview.
right.
And that's what I mean. That's what I meant when I mentioned motivation and confidence to you earlier.
Mhm,
Which is part of mindset in terms of interviewing is getting very clear on your why.
mhm, mhm.
Why am I going for this role? Or why am I going for any role? What's the situation right now? And a lot of times we may be tempted to say, well, I don't have a choice. I hate where I am. That wasn't the case with this client, but let's say that that's what's happening. And so there's a sort of like, I just need to get out of here and I just need to find something.
Mhm.
And what that can translate into is not being very clear on your own motivation for why you're going for this particular role. And that can translate into the interviewing process and how you come across. Does that
So
make
the
sense?
first step is self-awareness.
Absolutely.
Right. And so then what if I do find myself in that situation? I'm interviewing for a role, but I'm not sure I really want it. How can I use the idea of mindset to help me through that?
So mindset is all about your relationship to this role,
Hmm.
right? And that's going to inform how you approach it and how you come across when you're interviewing
Hmm.
for it subconsciously.
Hmm.
No matter how good you are at faking it, it's going to come across. So
Right.
the first is that self-awareness is let's talk about this role for yourself. Like let's unravel what is it about this role that is attractive to you? What is it about this role that's not attractive for you? And once we get clear on that, part of that can also be assumptions that you're making about it, because that comes up with my clients all the time. They
Hmm.
might just think, well, given the way that this company is or this role is structured, there probably isn't opportunities for growth, or they're probably not going to give me the flexibility that I need. They're probably going to make me work nights and weekends, or whatever the assumptions are that are coming up for you, which may or may not be true. But the thing is, right off the bat, you can identify some assumptions that you're making about this role that may or may not be true. And that's something you can even clarify in the interviewing process where it makes sense to do so, obviously. Right?
Right, right. And from the individual perspective, I've had a lot of clients, and I'm sure you have as well, that have gone through the I'm not going to be good enough for this role because of X.
Yes. Yes. That's an excellent point. That comes up, especially with female professionals all the time, not to generalize, but the tendency in high achieving professional women is that if I don't have 100% of what the job description says I should have, or I don't feel 100% confident in all of the skills, then I'm not really qualified for this. Even if I'm 90% of the way there, which is a very different mindset from how men approach, all things being equal,
Mhm.
generalizations, how they approach the interviewing process and their qualifications for a role. And that can impact your confidence. Absolutely. So the idea is when you look at that, is acknowledge that you're zeroing on the stuff that you're not able to do in your mind or not able to do well,
Mhm.
and and zone out into the bigger picture and see what is it that you are hitting in the JD.
Mhm.
Because
Job
this also
description.
happens.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. This happens all the time with my clients as well. And they're shocked, like, oh, I just glossed over that, thinking that that was easy for me.
Right.
Right? I do that well. I figure everybody does that really well. And no big deal. But
Mhm.
that's not the case. What you do really well doesn't mean it has no value, number one. It has a
Mhm.
lot of value. Number two, it doesn't mean everyone can do it or do it with the ease that you do it. That's your superpower. And playing to your strengths is one of the best things to motivate yourself and impact your mindset and give you the confidence you need to walk into that interview. Because a lot of times it's the opposite, right? People focus on what do they not do and how do I shore that out as opposed to playing to my strengths.
So just to make sure we're giving as much value as we possibly can in
Okay.
this video, what does playing to your strengths mean? People say that all the time. What does that mean, Anjali?
Well, again, it goes back to self-awareness. There's a there's a what I do with my clients, actually, I've created an assessment for this, is to really dive in deep in terms of detailing all the strengths that they have on multiple levels, levels that they wouldn't even have thought of bringing into their job situation, like what they do on their off time, things that they have experienced outside of this role that they've developed skills through that
Mhm.
they haven't even realized are marketable skills.
Right,
So
right.
when you take that litany of strengths, which can also be a very uncomfortable thing, as I've discovered with a lot of my clients, is to sit down and look at your strengths because it feels like, oh my God, this feels like I'm bragging. Even doing this with you feels like I'm bragging. Even saying it out loud feels like I'm bragging. So I, there's a lot of power in an exercise like that because one, you're owning your strengths, you're saying it, you're taking away the hesitation of owning the things that you're really good at. And then you're also seeing it in black and white. Like these are all the ways that I bring value to a place, wherever that place is, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. And there's a lot of power in that in terms of your confidence, in terms of getting over blocks, in terms of quote unquote self-promotion.
Mm.
Because if you're doing it in an authentic way where you're owning your strengths, it's a fact. It's not bragging if it's true.
Right. It's an interesting way to put it. I like that. It's a fact.
It's a fact,
Mhm.
right? If you've worked for decades on honing your communication skills and people see you as a really clear communicator, as someone who can succinctly, efficiently, and in very simple ways convey information to people in a way they can absorb, that's a superpower.
Right.
It's your strength. It's a fact. Own it.
So for men and for women, what would
Yeah.
you say in closing in terms of building confidence for interviews?
Well, one is to know your strengths. Two is to get very clear on your why for why you're doing this, including what you're bringing to the table, right? It's a mix of What do you love to do? What are you good at? And what is needed in the marketplace? And when those three things come together, there'll be a natural confidence when you're approaching that interview because you'll want it, you can do it, and you can bring the value that they need.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Anjali.
Thank you.
I'm excited to do some more videos with you. But for the moment, have a great day. Thanks.
Thanks, Henry.
Bye.